Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Today I'm going to talk about a little book called The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, the image which you will see here. The image behind me is very tiny, but I was very surprised to find a copy, an image that matched the copy of the book I have. This thing has been through so many printings and has so many different covers. I usually try and get a bigger image, but I wanted to stick with the theme. There will be some spoilers because I figured this book was written in 1844 regarding events that took place in the 1600s. If you don't know what the story is, that's your fault. But most people know the basic outline of the story. A young man, D'Artagnan, wants to join the elite King's Guard, the Musketeers. Travels to Paris with letters of recommendation from his father, who knows a man in the king's court. On the way, a man insults D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan insists on a duel. This old man's companions beat D'Artagnan up, steal his stuff, and break his sword. So that when D'Artagnan finally bedraggledy arrives in Paris, he has no letters of introduction, no money. When he's trying to convince Villiers, I can't remember the captain of the guard's names, to let him enlist, he sees the man who insulted him, who is Rochefort, a man working for Cardinal Richelieu, who was a powerful political figure in France at the time. In trying to run down Rochefort, he winds up insulting three gentlemen, each who challenge him to a duel, which D'Artagnan accepts. When D'Artagnan finally arrives to the duel, he finds that the first man he insulted is accompanied by his two friends. The other two people he is scheduled to duel later in the day. The three men are musketeers. They are amused by D'Artagnan, his cheek for challenging these unknown men to duels, his earnestness, his eagerness, his naivete. When Cardinal Richelieu's men arrive to arrest them for illegal dueling, D'Artagnan sides with the Musketeers and defeats all of them, and he acquits himself so well that he is allowed to enlist in the King's Guard, although not the elite Musketeers. There is a lot of political intrigue, mostly between Cardinal Richelieu, his spy, Lady de Winter, the King Louis XIII, his wife, Queen Anne. A lot of, there's political bickerings between the cardinal and the king and the king's wife, Queen Anne, and the Musketeers are in the middle of it. So that's the broad strokes, I think, of the story. This has been made into many film versions. I first saw the one with Chris York, I want to say. It might not be Chris York. His last name is York. And Richard Chamberlain as Athos. York as D'Artagnan. I know the actor who played Porthos was famous at the time. I cannot remember his name, and I didn't recognize the actor who played Aramis. But that's the film version that I saw, and it actually follows fairly close to the book, although the film is a bit more energetic. But let's stick with the book. The book is slower paced than a lot of the film adaptations, which you might expect from a novel. It is also a piece of its time, written in 1844, prior to the French Revolution, which I think took place in 1848. I'm not sure. I'm not a professional historian. I'm just guessing. I'm just running off what I remember. So if I'm wrong, I have no problem with being corrected. I do know it was written before the French Revolution, though, so that I am aware of. I just don't remember exactly when the French Revolution happened. But I love the movie. But I have to get back to the book. I keep being distracted by the film, because I loved the film as a kid. Why did I read this book? Several years ago, I was watching Hamlet, a film, Hamlet. Because why? Why not? And I noticed that it had a lot of the quotes from Hamlet. Good night, sweet prince. the plays The Thing, Something's Rotten in Denmark, and dozens of others. These things have become part of our cultural lexicon. You know, all these things from literary classics and plays and things like that have been such a part of our collective memory that they're just always there, and people kind of always use them and somewhat know what they mean. And I decided that these things were classic for a reason, and I should probably start reading some of the classics. So this is one of the books that I read. That's kind of what got me into reading this book instead of just going back and watching the old movies. And I did, you know, in comparing it to other adaptations, as you would expect from a literary work, this takes more time with some of the side characters. All four of these people, D'Artagnan and the three Musketeers, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, all have their manservants, which is kind of glossed over in a lot of the films. So, you know, they have more of a, not a major role, but they are more present in this book. As an example, that you get more time with the side characters. You get more time with the side characters. I must learn to enunciate properly and speak more slowly and clearly. So, as usual with most pieces of written work, you do get more time with the characters. To me, it does show its age in that it was written 200 years ago. So you have to take that into account. It is still well written and still entertaining. I still really like the book. One of the things I did find interesting that I'd forgotten about before looking into this was there's a preface by the author, Alexandre Dumas, which basically says he found this manuscript, Monseigneur d'Artagnan, Memoirs of Monseigneur d'Artagnan, which accounts, you know, the personal story, personal history of this man D'Artagnan. And he goes on for like a couple of pages in his preface saying, you know, I found this interesting. I borrowed it from the library, where I found it, read it, was looking to, you know, he found out by looking at the histories of Louis XIII and Louis XIV, and, you know, found the names interesting, did some further research, and found other books that mentioned Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, you know, to verify that these are real people and they actually existed. So, you know, he's kind of presenting this as a found manuscript, although it is a work of fiction. So I enjoyed that. However, having said that, D'Artagnan was a real person in the King's Musketeers. He was a captain of the King's Musketeers. He was granted a title, I think. Even though the book is a work of fiction, the main characters, D'Artagnan, Athos, Porthos, Aramis, are all based on real people, although D'Artagnan's name is slightly, you know, not changed so much. Athos, Porthos, and Aramis were based on real people. The names were changed. Nom de guerre, I think it's called in France, you know, an assumed name. Even the names of the characters themselves in the books. The character of Athos, I keep saying, is it Athos or Arthas? It's Athos. Athos is an assumed name for the character. He is a disgraced noble, not disgraced nobleman. He, you know, he is the old man of the group. He retired from his position, and drinks a lot. Porthos is an assumed name for the character. He is boisterous, loud, loves to party. And then Aramis, who is a ladies' man, but as a younger man wanted to be a priest. So he wars with his desire for women, for what he feels is his calling for the cloth. All in all, this is a classic for a reason. This is one of the early examples of swashbuckling literature, one of the earliest examples. And Dumas is known for writing several books, not just The Three Musketeers. He also wrote, I think he wrote The Man in the Iron Mask, and a couple other books that I am drawing blanks on. I used to know them. I'm just getting old and my brain is fried. Yeah, this is a classic for a reason. It is still a good book. I'm very glad I read it. If I had to say whether I preferred the film to this, I'm going to say I prefer the film, but I think that's more for nostalgia and because the film, the 1973 film that I saw, doesn't take itself very seriously for the most part, especially for the first act. The first act is just goofy. The introduction of the characters is very much over the top. And see, because this was written 200 years ago, maybe that for the time, that's how this was. But literary, I don't find it to be quite as much over the top. It is still somewhat bombastic and somewhat over the top. But I'm not sure if that's. I haven't read any other books from 1844, so I don't know if that's the style, or if it was meant to be taken more seriously. I couldn't tell you. I didn't look it up enough to know. I just know that I love the story. I have loved the story since the 1970s. I almost said 1700s. I'm not that old, but I've loved the story for most of my life. And I love the book nearly as much as I love the old films. So if you have an interest in classic literature, I would highly recommend The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. As always, thanks for watching. As always, this is crap. And until next time, good hunting.